said, do Africans dream of kente-clothed sheep? Do we dream at all, or do we have to keep our eyes open? And in our dreams, are we free? Do the ghosts of our blackness stay with us? And why should we dream? Perhaps dreams are a foreshadowing of what we can become if we were free. My name is Dr Njoki Ngumi. I am a member of the Nest Arts Collective. We are a multidisciplinary collective of artists living and working in Nairobi, Kenya. My connection with the restitution question comes from a work of the Nest, which we actually started quite a number of years ago, called Do Africans Dream of Kente-Clothed Sheep? Subtitle, Irreverent Tales by the Nest Collective. We were particularly interested in the idea of restitution after we'd had the then Prime Minister of the UK, David Cameron, talking about the idea of restitution, but he called it returnism, and it was very interesting what he said. It was very interesting what he said, because he said that if everybody started asking for everything in the British Museum, we would actually reach a point where the British Museum would be empty. And so for us, this idea of an empty museum really became very, very visual and visually arresting and quite picturesque. And so for us, Otta, which is what we called that collection of tales that we were working on then, was two stories, one in which we had a Black astronaut explore the reaches of outer space, and the other was an old medicine woman who went to reclaim a looted artifact that had been reduced to an ethnological trinket in another part of the world. And so because of that story engagement, we were able to meet a couple of other people who were also deeply interested in this idea of an empty museum, but they were looking at it from a completely different perspective. And their names were Sam Hopkins and Simon Rittmeyer, who later kind of consolidated their work together with a scholar named Marian to become the Shift Collective of Artists and Academics. And then we, as well as the National Museums of Kenya, facilitated by the Goethe Institute, came together to form the International Inventories Programme, which was this wide, sprawling group of people who were super interested in asking the tough questions about object return, having the conversations around power and responsibility and ownership amongst ourselves, and figuring out how to shift those conversations by interpreting them in public conversation, interpreting them through art, interpreting them through different ways to lobby and start conversations with duty bearers and people and stakeholders in this arena, as well as continue to have these very, very important conversations. One of the things that's really been interesting about working in IIP for the Nest Collective has been that we are able to just kind of evolve our primarily media-based practice into a much more community-anchored way of being, the kind of documentariness of this work. It is very real. It is about real objects that affected real people in real time. And we find ourselves as their very real descendants having to piece together multiple things, having to have very unsavory conversations, and having to hold space for these conversations as the ones who have the privilege of being able to have them now, and have the honor of being able to have them now, to find ways to include more people in these conversations in multiple different ways, whether it's as scholars, as journalists, as different roles in the community, because this is not a conversation that's only for professionals or people who have certain expertises. The objects in question belong to all of us. There are particular elements of our histories, and even the most mundane object, in as far as it left this country and these jurisdictions, these artificial, colonially imprinted jurisdictions in ways that we did not approve of. It meant that it left inappropriately. And it is a must that we have those conversations with all of the stakeholders who are holding space for all different positions, because we also have to have stakeholders who hold space for their ancestors, who are responsible for making the decisions and for creating the value systems that then made it easier for them to be able to take these objects and then kind of display them as spoils of war and as spoils of imperialism. And so at this point in time, I think it's really important for us to continue to be part of this expanding context. We are so happy that multiple people across the continent, across the world, have been having these conversations in all these different ways and places, and we are really honored to be able to join them and to be able to continue having these important conversations. And so we're really looking forward to this webinar.